All right, the build-up that continues. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance is all set to begin his India visit as he and his family descend on the national capital shortly. As J.D. Vance and his family will be landing at the Palam airport, expected around 9:30 a.m., where senior ministers of the Modi government are expected to receive them. Remember, this visit comes amid global concern over Trump's tariffs, which has been paused for 90 days for the nations to negotiate a new deal with the Trump administration. Both the nations, for this visit, it is expected to be a crucial one as India and the United States are actively negotiating a trade deal, and India certainly would want favorable terms for its exports. Both nations have also set themselves an objective to double the trade between the two nations to $500 billion by the year 2030. The two nations that will also be keen on countering China's growing presence and influence in the Indo-Pacific. India would also naturally want to discuss and better understand Trump government's stand on the H-1B visas as well, and the joint efforts also to counter illegal immigration into the United States. Remember, this is also the first major meeting between the two leaders and the governments there since the successful extradition of 2611 plotter Tahavur Rana. Now, in the meantime, as we talk of the U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance and his family, who are kick-starting this visit to India, they will be also, as we talk about the cultural engagements that would be taking place on the sidelines. So what expected in this visit? Let's take you through their itinerary one by one. As day one is now concerned, being in the national capital, let's put out as far as when it comes to upon being received by the top ministers there of the Modi government, a guard of honor which is also expected. Now being said that J.D. Vance and his family will be moving towards the Akshardham Mandir, and the visit that also has a lot of significance, mainly when we have seen foreign leaders who visit New Delhi also pay a visit to the Akshardham temple. If you remember, the former British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak along with his family had also paid a visit to the Akshardham Mandir. Now after that, there is a planned visit to Janpath Emporium as well. Cultural significance and richness is something that could also provide an opportunity to showcase India's talent as well. And thereafter, later in the day, when it comes to meeting with the Prime Minister, that would be held along with this delegation. And thereafter, Vance's family will be departing for Jaipur. And this is where it comes to cultural engagements with Indian nationalities that is now expected, including visits to Amer Fort, the address that is also expected at Rajasthan International Centre. Thereafter, from Rajasthan, the next destination would be Uttar Pradesh. So in Agra, when it comes to the iconic Taj Mahal, and also at the Shilpgram, the visit that is expected to take place. And in the meantime, when we talk about Jaipur, the departure would happen there for the United States of America. Let's in the meantime take a look and get our reporters there on board as well. Rishabh is connected with us right now. Rishabh getting a first word, and Priyank is also there with us. Good morning to both of you. Rishabh, we have been talking about the main highlights, what's on the table, what's on the agenda exactly when we take a look. Of course, business is something that would be taking place on a political aspect, but cultural engagements also on the sidelines also hold a lot of importance.
Well, this is second, top-level visit from United States to India. First was Tulsi Gabbard, who was here last month, and now J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, is about to land in India. What we're given to understand that he will be landing sometime around 9:30, and there is a ceremonial welcome at the Palam Air Base itself before the family heads to Akshardham. We are here at Akshardham, and J.D. Vance, along with his family, is expected around 10:30, quarter to 11 here at Akshardham. And what we are given to understand that, this is more or less a private visit for J.D. Vance, more than official. Sources very close to J.D. Vance and members of his office have suggested to us that here the Vice President wants his children, 3 children who are accompanying the Vice President and Second Lady to India, to expose them to Indian culture. And that's the reason that locations like Jaipur and Agra has been chosen for this visit. J.D. Vance lands in India at around 9:30, 9:40 a.m. in minutes from now, and then he'll head to Akshardham. After Akshardham, what we're given to understand, there is a meeting between J.D. Vance and the embassy staff at United States Embassy, and then what we are given to understand that the family will go out for shopping in the national capital. Remember, Delhi and Delhi antiques are quite famous in Western world, and Usha Vance, who comes from an Indian origin from the state of Andhra, is also accompanying. So she will be going out for shopping, is what we're going to understand. In the evening at 7, Lok Kalyan Marg, the residence of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, J.D. Vance and family would be reaching around 6 p.m. is what we are given to understand. There is a restricted meeting between the leaders. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will hold a restricted meeting with Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance. Then there is a delegation level talk at 7 LKM, and then there is a private dinner that will be hosted by Prime Minister Narendra Modi before J.D. Vance leaves for Jaipur tonight itself.
Well, Rishabh, getting us as far as the live updates are concerned, because shortly we are expecting the pictures that will also start to come in. Priyank is also with us. Quickly also introducing Suresh Kumar Goel, former diplomat. Sir, good morning to you. Abhijit Iyer Mitra is also joining us here on the broadcast. Good morning as well to you, Abhijit. Of course, as we are expecting the live pictures to come in, so right after his visit to Akshardham, the Vance family will be heading to Janpad Emporium, as Rishabh has been pointing and highlighting as far as today's itinerary is also concerned. But the significance that is also being attached. Priyank is also joining us from where the Vice President of the country will actually be residing while on his visit to New Delhi. Of course, when it comes to the other significances on top of business, because where we are looking at the United States having President Donald Trump and Make America Great Again has been the most talking point, Priyank, that we have seen of President Trump, and taking that message forward, we are looking at this first visit of the second family of the United States of America.
Yes, certainly, Amrita. Good morning to you and to our guests also. It's going to be an important day, as Rishabh has already pointed out, that this will be the second important visit from the people of the United States, that too the Vice President of the state, where he is here. He will be here shortly with his family member. But people are also curious to know about Usha Vance, because she being from the Indian origin and her father being from Andhra Pradesh, who shifted back to the United States. He was an engineer and his mother was a microbiology scientist. Both the parents shifted to the US, and she was born in the late 80s. That is the important factor because of which she wants to show it to her children that what is going to be significance of the Indian culture, because out of 3 children, one of the children also shares a Hindu name. So she is a practicing Hindu. We know that in 2014, when the couple got married after they introduced each other in the Vale College, they got married with a Christian as well as Hindu culture. So that is a sense which JD want to give it to his children. That's why you can see the destination which has been pointed out by Rishabh, which means Akshardham, Jaipur and Agra, and these are the important locations so that the children can get a sense within a very short span of 4 days of time period that how India's culture is. But at the same time, looking at the tariff war which is escalating in between US and the rest of the world, where the war is right now in between China and US, and Beijing being one of the main rival of Indian industries, is going to be very important that what will be the actual outcome of the pre-dinner meeting between Prime Minister Modi and J.D. Vance. So apart from the cultural heritage, which will be very good TV visuals for the rest of the world, what is going to be happening in the sidelines, whether Prime Minister Narendra Modi will have a
well, there are several issues there, Priyank, because we have highlighted them as almost as 5 Ts. We'll be going through all of these 5 Ts one by one. Letting you go, Rishabh and Priyank, because we're expecting the live pictures to come in shortly. Mr. Goel, the 5 Ts that mainly we have been talking and discussing about since morning talks about trade, it talks about tariff, it talks about termination with regards to the H-1B visas, it also talks about terrorism, and it also talks about trust. If you can briefly talk about as far as when it comes to trade and tariff, because India was hit with 26% tariffs by Donald Trump despite his good relations with the Prime Minister. Sir, can you unmute your mic, sir? Then we can hear you. Mr. Goel? Yes, sir.
Am I audible now?
Yes,
okay.
sir, very much.
Yes. Good morning once again to all the viewers and to you, Amrita. Out of all the 5 Ts that you're talking about, these 2 Ts, the trade and tariff, are the most difficult one really to my mind. Simply because President Trump, even with all the bonhomie that exists between him and Prime Minister Modi, all the goodwill that exists for India. So far, I have not seen any distinction, if any preference would be shown to India in President Trump's own mind on the trade regime or the tariff regime that he sees. When it went up to 90% for all the countries, it went up to 90% for India. When it came down to 10% for all the countries, it came down to 10% for India, including Vietnam, which actually is the most important China plus one country, where most of the American companies have transferred their operations. And therefore, if the tariff is same, 10% for Vietnam and 10% for India, Vietnam has a clear advantage over India in terms of marketing into the USA. Therefore, despite all the good words which are coming from every side, trade and tariff are the most difficult thing that we are going to face, particularly because India is not plugged into the global supply chains as the other countries in Southeast Asia are. So from that point of view, I would say the meeting in the evening between Prime Minister and Vice President Vance is going to be very important. I do hope if Vance is able to give some indication on how the USA will look at India in terms of the tariff regime and the trade agreement. Sorry, just half a minute more.
Yes, sir.
We are talking of the trade agreement as a kind of a recipe to resolve tariff and trade issues between India and the USA. I think we need to wait and see on that account whether it works or not.
Well, not
trade agreements are very difficult.
But as far as, favorable conditions for India as well, will that India be looking out for? Abhijit, what's your take? Is New Delhi wary? Because both leadership wants Make America Great Again. It's India First policy here for the Prime Minister. The White House has described this current visit of the Vice President as focused on shared economic and geopolitical priorities. How is India viewing it?
So, as a rule, Amrita, we don't retaliate. And we understand how to play Trump very well. Remember, even the first term, the Trump administration and Modi had a very good equation. And the only real point of friction we had with the Trump one was tariffs again. Harley-Davidson, we let them into India. Harley-Davidson failed all by themselves. It had nothing to do with tariffs, right? So there's a lot of things we can do, which we do very silently. We don't announce it. And the thing is, Trump seems to be quite predisposed towards India. Now, he referred to Modi, to India in the press conference with Modi in Washington as the tariff king, right? That nobody does tariffs more than India. Yet India was nowhere near the top tier of the tariff, retaliatory tariff countries. You look at the exclusions list from those tariffs, the machine parts, nuclear reactors and things like that. That was, we were given complete exemption. You look at what we export to America, all your prime exports to America were given complete exceptions. The maximum hit you suffered was something like $2 to $3 billion. Not a small amount, but certainly not a big amount compared to the volume of India-America trade. The second thing that happened in all of this was that, when sanctions were imposed on similar countries like Bangladesh, like Goel sir said before me, on Bangladesh and Vietnam and things like that, Indian textile exports, which were tariffed, which were not in the exclusion list, actually became very, very competitive vis-a-vis Bangladesh and Vietnam and things like that. Now, Vietnam is negotiating its own standalone trade deal to avoid those kind of tariffs. Bangladesh is not. So you're still going to be extremely... Who are your three biggest competitors in the American textile market? China, Vietnam, and Bangladesh. Now, Vietnam might end up negotiating a deal that makes its products competitive, but Bangladesh and China will not. Right? So it's still going to be extremely competitive for us.
Yes.
It gives us what we lose on, say, $2-3 billion in one hand. You have a very big opportunity of making it up on other trade items as and when you want.
All right. But Mr. Goel, when we talk about J.D. Vance's visit to India, this is also coming just ahead of the U.S. Intel chief. Tulsi Gabbard was also in New Delhi when it comes to bolstering Quad. And not to forget, when it comes to China, it is India's neighbor. So when we talk of the four-nation security grouping that includes US, India, Japan and Australia, do you believe that that was also seen as a counterweight to China's growing clout?
Maybe I'm missing out something here, Amita, but I'm trying to recall if President Trump has made any statement regarding American policy towards Quad so far. with the exception of an anodyne statement right in the beginning when he became president. But maybe I'm forgetting something on that account. Therefore, please forgive me if that is the case. I think essentially for President Trump, China is an issue. And as far as China as a geopolitical and geostrategic issue is concerned, Quad is an important grouping for the USA, and so is AUKUS. It all depends upon how President Trump will look at the ways to deal with China. At the same time, we keep on hearing, and maybe it is just the way President Trump talks, but we keep on hearing, oh, China is actually coming to the USA with a deal. And we are going to have a deal with China. Now, the point really here is that if that kind of a deal does happen, I don't know, but if that kind of a deal does happen, where would that leave the subcontinent? So we need to wait and see really in all this respect, because President Trump is very transactional.
Well, India is watching, but I believe so will China will also be watching as far as the developments in India is concerned with respect and with regards to the US Vice President's visit. But Abhijit, quick answer, because Xi Jinping has also been, on a Southeast Asia tour, the Charm Offensive. He's been promoting Beijing as a more steadier and a more dependable economic ally than Washington. Quick answer.
Look, he can promote as much of China's economic reliability as he wants, Amrita. The point is nobody in Southeast Asia is buying that. They are, all their policies, except maybe say Laos, are geared towards a Chinese threat. Even Thailand, which buys military equipment from China, views China as a threat. So, you can keep saying, I've got lovely apples to sell. And people might like that also. It's just that when they buy apples from you, they know there's poison cyanide in those apples.
Well, if we talk about as far as his primarily visit is now concerned of J.D. Vance, it's going to be a strong personal element as well. When we talk about the cultural significance, the family will be touring the royal palaces of Jaipur and iconic Taj Mahal. We've been getting ground reports there from a team of reporters. In the meantime, Mr. Goel and Abhijit, thank you very much for joining us. Now, appreciate you joining us here on the broadcast. Of course, the non-stop coverage continues on what happens as far as J.D. Vance and his family will now be in New Delhi shortly. But apart from